packaged. So that's what we can eat on this diet. It's pretty tasty. Questions? Yes, Nina?
You know the Eat Bacon, Don't Jog, No Lotion?
I love that book. She said, do I know about that book, Eat Bacon, Don't Jog? Don't jog, yeah, particularly for women, it's hard on us to jog. Yeah, so, and more of just a book talking about, like, really in layperson's terms, that it's dietary change is the most important part to being healthy. Yes, exercise is important. We really want our patients to exercise. There's so many good things about exercise, but it's not for weight loss. It's other things that is good. So, yeah, that's a good book. And Rhoda.
Did any of the doctors that you've gathered information from discuss the condition of ketoacidosis?
Good question. Thank you. Yes. Yes. So, and there is some confusion between the term ketosis and ketoacidosis. Ketosis is a state where you're fat burning. You're using fat for fuel. Ketoacidosis is when you have too many ketones in your blood and you don't have any insulin. You're not able to produce insulin. So in the absence of insulin, you become too acidic with the ketones in your blood and you can die. This can only happen in someone who cannot produce insulin, such as a type 1 diabetic. So I have a slide by Dr. Westman. He shows that everybody goes into ketosis overnight, unless you're reading the refrigerator when you sleep. You are fasting overnight and you go into ketosis. Say you go into up to a 10-day fast, not eating, you still are not in ketoacidosis because you can produce insulin. But if you cannot produce insulin, then you get that very dangerous ketoacidosis. So you do not get ketoacidosis for a ketogenic diet. Yeah, good question. Yes.
What about those with type 1 diabetes? Because I noticed that it was on there as it's a good condition to treat.
For actually type 2 diabetes, it absolutely cures type 2 diabetes. Type 1 diabetes, it can be used also. It has to be carefully monitored just for the thing we're talking about, that you don't want to have all this ketones in your body and no insulin, right? So there is a great website, Robert Bernstein, who is 84 and has a physician and has had type 1 diabetes since he was 12, and so he's studied it extensively, and he uses a ketogenic diet to help manage it so he doesn't need as much insulin. We know type 1, people with type 1 diabetes, they want that chocolate cake, so they give themselves some insulin and they eat the chocolate cake, right? So we want to prevent them from having to give themselves so much insulin. We can keep their blood sugar at a good level with less insulin if they're using a ketogenic diet, but it has to be monitored. Yes?
How did you address the emotional side of this? Because I can only imagine that taking away so much carbs in your diet could affect your mood and your energy levels.
So that is a really good question. Thank you. Interestingly, because when you saw that response, that blood sugar response, insulin response, and what happens is that the carbs are going way up and we're going way down, this is a person who's very labile. My sister is bipolar. She said when she went on a ketogenic diet, her mood is more stable because I'm not getting these blood sugar swings, right? And so one thing that happens too is that when we eat carbohydrates, it sets off endorphins in our brain, the feel-good stuff, right? That's why they're called comfort foods. But then we have the blood sugar crash and we feel worse. And so when instead we're using fat, our blood sugar stabilizes, our energy level stabilizes, we actually have more energy. But it takes about 2 weeks to transition. In that 2-week period, you can have what we call the keto flu, or the carb flu, kind of a carb hangover. As you're changing from sugar burning to fat burning, you can feel pretty bad. And so we really need to support that person for 2 weeks to make sure they get to the good feeling part. And they will, all of a sudden, they're gagging at 10 at night because they have so much energy. And it will be a dramatic change in energy, but they have to get to that switch to being fat burning, so they get that feel good. If they give up before they get there, then they never know the benefit of it. Yeah. Yes.
What sort of strategies did you recommend to your clients during those 2 weeks when you were feeling terrible, like, to get through that period?
So that's why when I introduced the diet on the second session, when I get you that 8-page handout, he talks about some things that could happen with the diet. And you might get a headache. So do this. So he tells you what to do. And so we went over all that stuff. These are potential things that might happen. So sometimes it's just that you're low salt. What happens when in a low carbohydrate diet, your kidneys stop retaining the salt, you heat it out, and you end up, that's electrolyte, you end up becoming low salt, and you get a headache and you feel tired. And so start salting your food. And a lot of our patients, particularly mine with lymphedema and swelling, they have not salted their food forever, right? Because that's going to make them swell more. And so that's another thing they might have to change. So we're talking about those various things that might happen during that time, and this is what you should do. Yeah.
So I just want to say I have actually lost 56 pounds on this diet.
Nice.
Did you have any difficulty or pushback from, or difficulty for patients who have a diabetic counselor or nurse or doctor telling them one thing and you telling them another, or?
Right. So if a person has come to me and their physician has told them to eat a certain way, I'm not going to counteract that. That is, I might say, you might want to check out this website, but I am not going to tell them to change what their doctor's told them to do, right? For instance, I have an oncologist in my area that wants all of her patients to be on a low-fat diet. I don't even discuss the diet with them. I'm sorry that that has to be that way, but I mean, I have to be, it's all based on the physician referral, and their word is apparently better than mine. So, but if their doctor has not made anything about nutrition, and most of them do not, then I freely discuss it.
And what is the physician referral specifically for?
For lymphedema. Yeah, none of my patients came to me for obesity. And they're not going to for you either. Usually they're going to come to you because for some other condition, but you are going to say, your arthritis is made worse by your weight. What have you done before? What's worked in the past? Have you ever tried eating lots of fat? I guarantee you the answer is no. Right? It's a little bit scary but then when I tell them, you know what I eat? I eat 70% fat, 20% protein, and 10% carb. Okay? And right next to you, I think someone had a question.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you recommended the clients to journal and kind of write out what they're eating, what's maybe working for them, how they're feeling.
Yeah. So one of the sessions that we did, actually the one we went over, with the barriers to change, we had an activity log and a food log. And I said that's for them themselves. They are welcome to go over it with me, but I'm not overseeing that and, oh no, that was bad, this was good. They can share it with me if they want, but mostly it's for themselves. So yes, those logs are good to do. I think in the front, yes.
Yeah, earlier you had mentioned that one of your clients had a family that was vegan.
Yeah.
So kind of a couple questions. One, or I guess parts. One is, can vegans go, and I know the answer to this, but can ketos, do you have clients that are vegan or vegetarian also noticing that in the protein section, you don't have a lot of magnets that have vegan protein sources?
Yeah.
And how do you address all of the kind of recent news articles that say eating lots of red meat is bad, which all the vegetarians I'm sure are like, yay, more vegetarians,
Yeah.
but I'm sure doesn't help this diet that you're supporting.
Yeah. So first thing is, if they insist on being vegan, I got nothing for them. You cannot get enough fat, and you have to eat too many carbs on a vegan diet. So I do not try to change that. They have a particular reason for doing that, And I'm not going to attempt to fight that. That's got to be their personal choice. Vegetarian, you absolutely can do it, especially if you will eat fish and if you will eat eggs. Now, if you're not willing to have, thank you very much, if you're not willing to eat, if you're a vegetarian that won't eat fish, it's harder. So some nice fatty fishes, and actually marine foods are some of the best fats that we can have. So if the vegetarian is willing to eat fish, it's very easy to do it, harder if they're not able to. And then as far as the research that's coming out, I would highly recommend going to the dietdoctor.com site to look at how those supposed trials that have shown that red meat or processed meat are bad for you, how they were absolutely very, very poorly run studies and do not, their own data don't show what they said it showed in the headlines. So yes, it does make it difficult when you've got that kind of news coming out that is absolutely spurious, misleading. It's just not, when you look at actually read the whole study, and they're making leaps that are not found in their data. Other questions? I'd love to hear from any of you if you'd like to contact me. Thank you so much for listening.